The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of our guest. We Don't Talk About That is a platform for open, honest, and authentic conversations around mental health. Our hope is that you are enriched by what you hear.
I'm Josh Cantwell, Chief Executive Officer at Grand Mental Health. Welcome to We Don't Talk About That, a podcast committed to honest, direct conversations about mental health. In each episode, we talk openly about the many different challenges that face our communities and those we serve. Together, our team and special guests explore new ways to approach mental health, from progressive thinking to mindful treatment. Here's to open minds and open dialogue. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello, I'm Jessica Lobetz, and joining me in the studio today is Demita Kinard, a licensed professional counselor and 30-year law enforcement officer in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank you for joining us today, Demita.
And thank you for having me.
First, let's start with you just telling us a little bit about your background and what led you to a career that bridges both mental health and law enforcement.
Oh, wow. That's a story. My dad was a 23-year police officer in New York City, transit cop. Could tell you anywhere you wanted to get to on any one of the transit systems. I saw what he was going through, and I always said, nah, I'd never want to be a police officer. But here I am in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was looking for a job. Somebody said, you know what? Police department's hiring. I'm like, okay, why not? 30 years late, because 30 years later, here I am. But initially, I was like, oh, I'm going to last maybe 5 years, but I'm going to try this out. Here I am. And so I was in crime scene, and crime scene's been maybe like 10, 15 years ago. I was in crime scene. And yes, I saw the survivors of violent crimes, survivors' families of somebody who might have died in an act of violence. I also saw the police officers affected by it. And I wanted to go into mental health first because I figured it'd make me a better crime scene investigator. You know, the whole Silence of the Lambs, I wanted to be like Clarice. But the program I went into changed, which forced me to get a master's in forensic science and then go back if I wanted to do the counseling piece. So I said, okay, I'll go back and do the counseling piece. And then that's where I really started to focus on what's my purpose, what's my why for finishing the counseling. And it was to help my brothers and sisters in uniform. That was police, fire, medical, military, to get past that what the heck just happened moment, those moments that somebody else is telling you, you just got to suck it up and live with it, and they don't know how to live with it. So I was like, you know what? Okay, I want to help. I know the uniform. I want to help. And it just kept transitioning after that to where I am right now, where I do trauma work off duty, and on duty I work with the severely mentally ill.
It's amazing that you would call that out. I think it's easy to assume that law enforcement officers can see trauma, can support what's happening in terms of a really hard situation or incident, but then the expectation is that you walk away and proceed with life. And so the fact that you said pause, there has to be some level of intervention. Tell me a little bit more about that and how your voice has made a difference in that.
I don't think it's just my voice. I have a lot of brothers and sisters who have all come to the point of we have to stop the craziness. We have to stop it's just, it just sucks to be you today. You just got to suck it up, buttercup, and move forward. We have to stop that because we were losing too many officers. We've lost several officers to suicide in the Tulsa Police Department. We've lost officers to alcoholism and other substances. Same thing for the fire department. We are losing our brothers and sisters in ways that are preventable. And we all came together and said, you know what? Enough is enough. We had one officer who died by suicide in 2016, and that really, because he was one of those officers, he would go out and he would do everything. He was a community-based person, was always trying to build a community interaction, but there was this whole push of, hate the police, and he was trying to erase that idea that all cops are bad people. And so he was working hard with that, but he had his own demons that he was fighting. And so his demons, took him over, and he felt he had no recourse but to kill himself. And we all said, if that man could get to the point of doing that, how many others of our brothers and sisters are we potentially losing or gonna lose to the same thing. It's like, no, enough is enough.
So from your perspective, what are some of the biggest mental health challenges that officers encounter on the job?
I'd say you get a lot of anxiety and depression. Anxiety and depression are base reactions that your body's going to come up with. Anxiety is fear-based. Depression kind of keeps you stuck back in this happened. The fear is to keep you alive. So bad things happen. Your brain is like, okay, this bad thing happened. Let's store this information so that if we come across this bad thing again, we know how to act and react to it. Sometimes those act and react come at very, inappropriate or not the right moment. You're driving down, you got into a car wreck, you're driving down the same street that you got into the car wreck. All of a sudden your brain's like, we did this before, and you're slamming on your brakes, causing a wreck, when all you were trying to do was keep yourself alive. We had one officer, we've had several officers who went to war over the various conflicts that there have been over these last few decades. He came back, and once they are gone for a while, you have to come back and ride with another officer. He's riding down Riverside Drive, trees and water, people out on the river. He saw a box on the side of the road, and he automatically flashed back to Fallujah, because he's like, there's an IED, there's an explosive device in there, we've got to stop. So he's jerking the steering wheel. The other officer's driving. He's jerking the steering wheel to save them from this perceived danger when it was just a box. It was just a box. So you get a lot of officers who internalize a lot of this stuff, and sometimes it comes out at moments you don't want it to come out. Then you're like, oh, what was that about? Or somebody else will say, what was that about?
So tell me, we were talking earlier about the power of the brain, and you were saying that when it senses, like you just shared a minute ago about driving on Riverside and seeing a box, when it senses danger, what it will do to try to keep you alive is suggest the episode of trauma or fear or whatever the bad thing might have been. Can you talk a little bit about that? What is the brain intending to do? And then how do you overcome that scenario of fear and anxiety or darkness?
Well, your brain little job is to keep you alive. It's sending messages throughout your body on what you got to do to stay alive. When a threat, either it senses something that you see, smell, taste, hear, or feel, your brain's like, okay, I'm taking this information in. Is it something I need to fight? Is it something I need to run from? Is it something that I just got to possum up, pass out, and hope that this thing's going to go away? Or is it something so horrific that we just got to give into the system so we can just survive it? And your brain takes all this information in strictly to keep you alive, storing this information. So when we go through our day-to-day, we're working from that front part of our brain, the here and the now. That front part, the prefrontal cortex, that is our logic center and what's happening in front of us. When your brain senses something, it goes back into your memory bank and go, where have we seen this before? Where have we encountered this before? Was it a bad thing? Is it something we got to run from? Is it something we got to fight? Something we need to possum up? Or something we just give into? And that's the way your brain is keeping you alive, not to hurt you. Your brain is not doing anything to hurt you. It's just trying to keep you alive. We, as the big-brained adults that live in that front part, the here and now, when you start sensing something that you're not readily aware of it, that's when you can say, hey, brain, I appreciate you. You've given me some great information. You've kept me alive. Right here, right now, we're going to do something a little bit different. Right here, right now, I don't need that. This is what I'm going to do. This is the route we're going to take. And your brain's like, okay, and then you just go on.
Well, what an amazing exercise to acknowledge the brain for its intention to help you live.
Yeah.
But to also say thank you right now. I don't need that. I'm not in a survival mode. I can do this. Yeah. Very interesting. So now we'll go to the communities you serve in terms of mental health. From your perspective, what are some of the biggest mental health challenges that the people you serve are facing right now?
It's still the stigma and the ignorance toward mental health. Not just mental. I always separate mental illness from mental health. Illness is illness, be it a cardiac illness, a blood illness, a brain illness. Health is to help you live either within that illness or to prevent the illness. And for a lot of people, it's just fighting that stigma of I ain't crazy. You're not crazy. I don't even like using the C word. You might have an illness or you might have something going on in your life that's taxing you a little bit, but you're not crazy. You're human. And your brain's like, we need to deal with this. Whether you want to right now or not, I'm going to deal with this. And those are the big things. It's just fighting that stigma of I'm not crazy. I don't want people to know they're going to think down on me, or I got so many other things to deal with. I can't deal with this.
So when you arrive on the scene as an officer with a badge and you're noticing someone is having a mental health crisis or challenge, are you saying that you are working to de-escalate that and to affirm that they aren't crazy or that there are other ways to address whatever is needed at that moment?
Yes, it's helping the person recognize they're okay, what you're going through is okay, and there are resources to help you. Sometimes their reactions can be so out of the norm. You know, the brain is trying to make sense of something, the brain is diseased or whatever, that the behaviors are really, really, really odd or really, really, really violent. Not violent so much that they actually want to hurt somebody, but violent in they're trying to survive and their brain's like, we got to fight this because everything's scaring us. It's helping that person recognize it's okay, we're here to help. Sometimes that doesn't come across quickly. Sometimes it takes a lot of work. Sometimes it does take us literally putting the person into handcuffs and going, this is the way we're going to keep you safe and keep us safe as we get you to the facility for the professionals to help you out.
What are some common misconceptions the public has about how police interact with individuals experiencing mental health crisis?
The minute we break out the handcuffs, people say, he's not a criminal, don't hurt him. I have heard that so many times. Don't hurt him, he's not a criminal. Don't hurt her. You know, you don't need those handcuffs, they didn't do anything wrong. Exactly, they didn't do anything wrong. That's how we keep that person safe, that's how we keep ourselves safe. Can you imagine, you put somebody in the back of your patrol car who's thrashing around. Now, not every police car has a cage, or what we call the divider. Not every police car has that. So sometimes they'll put the person in the front seat. Imagine if somebody's thrashing around. How are you driving your car when somebody's thrashing around, pulling your steering wheel, ripping out your computer, trying to jump out? You can't. The handcuffs give us a little more security of being able to keep the person contained. That's all.
And are you explaining that to them or the public or the people who are saying, stop hurting them?
We try, but if it can be such a dynamic scene because everybody's reacting. So you have family members who are hysterical. They're reacting to their loved one being placed in the handcuffs. You've got the person who's in the middle of a psychotic episode who reasoning with them is really difficult. They don't understand. And then you got the officers who are just trying to be safe and keep everybody safe as they're trying to do their job and explain all this. Those can be such dynamic scenes that sometimes it comes out with a lot of yelling and a lot of movement. And if it would be beautiful if we just had the moment to stop, slow it down, and just all communicate. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes once you get parties separated, like if you're putting handcuffs on somebody, you get them in the car, your partner can explain to their family, they're not in trouble. They're not in trouble. We're taking the person down to ... We put the handcuffs on for their safety and ours. Once people start getting explanations, it's a little bit better. People still believe that the minute police come out, there's some criminal thing. It's going to be a blot on their record. And no, it's a health matter, so there's no record of it.
Throughout your career, what mental health resources or strategies have truly worked for you in the field?
There's no one resource. There really isn't. I love resources, make that plural, because you're dealing with human beings, so it's not going to be one-stop shop for everybody. Not everything's going to work for everyone, but having multiple things. Treating children the same way you treat adults, that doesn't work. Medical field has very much seen this and expressed it doesn't work. Children aren't just little people. Their bodies are reacting differently. And even within children, you have the little ones, you've got the preteen, and then you have what they call the adolescent teenagers up into the age of majority. And even beyond the age of majority, 18 to 26 or so, you've got people who they might be considered adults, but their brains are still developing. So they're still back in high school time, acting like teenagers. So you even have to consider how you interact with them, which is going to be different than somebody who's of a mature age. So it's just, there is the one thing that works for everybody. I just like being in the know of the resources. What's really helped is that we have collectives here in the city of Tulsa, where you have the mental health professionals, medical professionals, the law enforcement, fire. We get together on what they call a quarterly basis, and we talk about what's up. What new are you introducing into the system? What new can we use from the system? And I love that because it's all about the resources.
And how do you learn emotional intelligence? Because what you just described, if you come on the scene and there's an adolescent who's in danger or causing harm, or if there's, a grown-up, or there's cases where children are involved, how do you as an officer know how to respond to those different needs based on who you're encountering and using emotional intelligence to discern that kind of treatment?
Well, we train officers in active listening. Active listening is letting the other person know he or she is being heard. And active listening is applicable to any age. Even a 2-year-old wants to know you're hearing what their needs are. Same thing for a 100-year-old. Just let me know you're hearing what my need is. And that's what active listening. Active listening is listening to what's being heard, being said to you, and letting the other person know, I hear you. And that's the way we do it.
Yeah, that's really good. My 5-year-old will say, Mama, you just said, mm-hmm. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
What does mm-hmm mean?
Yeah. Hear me. Yeah.
Hear me.
Yeah.
Well, can you share a specific story or moment that really changed the way you think about mental health and policing?
Man, I've thought about that question. It's usually in the post-crisis. That's when it lets me know, oh, okay, having this knowledge and having this skill set has helped. I remember there was a woman, her fiance, 25-year-old Marine, had come back from, I forget what conflict it was, living in his apartment, found dead. He was a 25-year-old healthy man. No indication of suicide, no indication of homicide. And I remember her sitting there, and she's holding his ball cap, and she's just rocking back and forth, and she's got that dead-on stare. And I was like, oh, she doesn't know when to walk away. She's afraid she's leaving him. I'm like, okay. And I leaned over her. I said, it's kind of hard to know when to leave this area, isn't it? She's like, yeah. I said, you can take the hat with you if you like. And that seemed to make her feel better in that moment. And that's where I realized it's recognizing what's before you, not being stuck in, okay, policy says we got to do this, and this. I got to fill out this paperwork, da, 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 da. It's recognizing what's before you, and that's where the knowledge of mental health, it isn't that human beings are all in one box and are all going to act and react a certain way. Everybody brings something a little bit differently to every scene, and it's recognizing what is here right now that needs to be done. What can I work with? What skill set do I have that can help affect a change right here, right now?
So what advice would you give to officers all over this country who are encountering someone experiencing a mental health crisis for the first time?
I say, it's okay. It's scary. Yeah, it's very scary. And that's where you got to know yourself. When our brain is afraid, our brain is processing, do I need to run from this? Do I need to fight this, hide from this, or do I just give into it? It's okay to know this is a scary situation, and I know my support system, I know my resources, I know me well enough to know I got this. And I would say that to anybody when you come across a scary situation. I got this, I know my resources, and it's okay to be afraid.
Wow. How can departments better support the mental wellness of their own officers, especially given the high stress nature of the job?
Making it known that it's okay to be human. No, making it known that we are humans. We've got a job. And yeah, sometimes it stinks to be us. And even in those moments where it stinks to be us, know that it's okay because you're not alone. You're never alone. In any department, even the small town departments where you might have 2 or 3 officers, you never walk alone. And that means you're not alone in finding resources. You're not alone in helping the situation out. You're not alone in dealing with what you're going through in your own brain.
Did you ever hear your father, who also had a career in law enforcement, talk about that mental health and wellness?
Oh no, my dad was a cop at the end of the Vietnam era. He was, I remember, and he was a cop as well as a black man, outside of civil rights and at the end of the Vietnam era. So he was a pig and every other nasty word. So he did not talk about the job until he retired from the job. And even then, it was several years after that before he really started to talk about it. But mental health? No. My generation is an older generation. Even the younger generations, those generations are still dealing with the stigma of mental health and mental illness. So my dad, from a man of the 40s and the 50s, definitely wasn't mental health. That's for somebody who's got nothing else to do, who's got a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time to even think about.
Wow, I'm so glad things are changing because it's so incredibly important. So how can law enforcement and mental health professionals work together more effectively to serve their communities and themselves?
Well, I think, when I became a mental health professional, I found a lot of bigotry toward police officers. Part of the program was I had to find an internship, and there were many doors that were slammed in my face and they were very vocal about, we don't want you because you're a police officer. Any facility I go into, if I'm there as a mental health professional, I'm a mental health professional. I am not a police officer, but a lot of the facilities, because of bigotry toward police officers, misconceptions, they didn't want me in the building, wouldn't have me. And even in class, there were people who treated me poorly when they found out I was a police officer. And so sometimes I wouldn't tell people, I'm just coming into class. And so that really stopped. It has changed over the years. It has changed because after whatever people think of COVID really opened people's eyes to mental health. Really opened a lot of people's eyes. And we became demode. So there were a lot of more mental health professionals that were willing to work with police officers. A lot more, what do they call them? Cooperation, co-responder kind of thing of, okay, we're serving the same population, let's work together to do this. So there were a lot more of that. How we can do better is to continue. Mental health professionals are, for the long time, there seemed to be a lot of step back from dealing with the more violent population. They're like, we don't want to deal with that. We don't want to deal with that. We don't want to deal with that. So these people were just kicked to the street, left to deal with their behaviors, which usually turned into criminal behaviors, which meant police would get involved. The jails are the second largest mental health institution because a lot of people are in jail because they're violent and they've committed violent crimes. It's allowing the mental health professionals to start taking back those pieces. We had mental health facilities that served very specialized populations like, Shadow Mountain, Hissam, Raider, that when they found abuses, these systems went away. But who was serving their populations? There wasn't anybody. So again, they're dumped to the street to commit crimes, to end up in jail, to spend their lives in an institution, the jail, which wasn't when they were getting treatment. And so a lot of that is starting to change where the mental health groups are taking back some of the more specialized populations.
Oh, that's huge. Are there any models or programs you've seen, either locally or nationally, that show real promise in bridging these two sectors?
Yeah, the co-responder programs, where you have a mental health professional and a first responder. Either it's a firefighter, paramedic, or it's a police officer. They're going out as teams. So you have the view from the law enforcement side, you have a view from the mental health side, or you have the view from mental health side and the medical, because sometimes there's a medical condition that's leading to the person's mental health crisis. And it's looking at all those things and the systems communicating, the systems working together. We don't want to fill the jail. I don't know if I can say that more. We don't want to fill the jail. We want people who have committed crimes to be held accountable. But if someone's ill, please, let's get that person help before it gets to the point of them committing such a horrific crime that the system has no recourse other than to lock them away.
Yeah. Are there any gaps? Are there any, or is there work left undone in terms of bridging this mental health and law enforcement cooperation and partnership? Do you see areas of opportunity?
Oh, definitely. We have an aging population. We have a lot of the people from the 60s and the 50s that are aging. We've got a lot of people with dementia, Alzheimer's, and other brain disorders that there is no place. For us to take them into protective custody, they have to get that sick. If there were another way, another space to help these people. People still retain the right to say no to treatment. This is true. However, when you have people living on their own just because there's nothing else for them, that's where I think, okay, what else can society do? What else can we look at? They've known for the longest that we were going to have an aging population. This has been known. We've got an aging population and a decreasing birth rate. So somewhere, somebody's got to be taking care of somebody. And so it's how do we help this aging population? And then we have a lot of people who have been diagnosed on the autism spectrum. There are some people who are very functional with their autism. There are some people who are also very non-functional. So what are we doing for those non-functional people, especially when they're caregivers, who are usually the older people? They die off, they move away, they get tired of caring for them, and they are booted to the street. What are we doing for that population?
Wow, very good, very good. As a thought leader, what is your vision for the future of mental health and policing in this country?
You see, whenever I say my thought, I see the mental health people going, no. My thought is take law enforcement out of it. The only reason that we are involved is because state statute says we're the only ones who can take somebody to protective custody. That's the only reason we're involved. Well, that a lot of people call 911. But imagine if the mental health professionals took back that power. Yes, somebody might call 911. We're like, oh, this person needs to go into protective custody. And the mental health professionals came in and took the person into protective custody and took law enforcement totally out of it. Wouldn't have to put the person in handcuffs. Wouldn't have to be put into a patrol car. Wouldn't have to have a uniformed officer there. Because even when they're somebody's in a state of psychosis, you can say, well, you're not in trouble all you want, but there's still a uniform with a gun standing there. They're still being placed in the handcuffs. So my dream is to take us out of it totally, let the mental health professionals get whatever training they need, whatever equipment they need, let them be the ones to take their people into custody and get them the help they need.
Yeah, very good. What would you say to leaders who are just beginning to have these conversations? Law enforcement leaders, mental health leaders just in communities. What would you say to them?
I say listen up and don't think of the dollar sign. That's the problem. A lot of places are like, well, where are we getting this money? I know when you're an administrator, looking at the money is a very critical part of looking at systems. Look beyond the money. Look at what resources are in my community that I can partner with, what resources are in my community that I can work with. And I say, okay, look, We don't have the money to hire this, and this person. However, we can form some sort of cooperation where you work with us, we work with you, and get the help to people that need the help.
So much can be done when we're working together toward the same goals.
Communication is key. I don't think anything that's ever changed, anybody said, yeah, we should have communicated less. No, communication is key. To make a change, you got to talk to each other.
So a New York native, 30 years in policing, counselor, all the things that you've been able to do in your life, what gives you hope? Where does your hope come from?
You know, it might sound corny, but my hope comes from the Lord. I really believe my faith is key to me. My faith is where I get my strength. My faith is where I have those moments of, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I turn to the Lord and I'm like, you put me here. You have some knowledge. You have some faith. Help guide me. That's where I get my hope, and I have never gone wrong with that.
What do you want listeners to walk away with after listening to this episode today?
I want listeners to walk away with mental health is not bad. Attending to your mental health is critical because if you don't tend to your mental health, daily stressors are going to take over. I don't care if you work 4 jobs and you are barely making it moment to moment financially. You have to take care of yourself in order to be able to work those 4 jobs and moment to moment. When I speak to older populations about, mental health, they're like, I ain't got time for all that. Talk to me about your stress. People will talk to you about their stress all day long. Yeah, my boss. Okay, so what do you do to help yourself dealing with this boss? That's attending to your mental health. Call it whatever you want, but that's attending to your mental health. If you deal with your stress, you deal with those daily things that get under your skin, those daily things that make you go, I can't take this anymore. That's what makes us get moment to moment. And it's helping people recognize, deal with that stress, deal with that mental health. And if it is that you have a mental illness, you're not bad. You're not crazy. You're not odd. You just have an illness that needs to be dealt with. That's it. So learn to deal with that illness. Take those meds. Get some good therapy. You've got skills. Recognize your coping skills. Do all those things you got to do to work beyond your illness.
And what about self-care? What do you do for yourself?
Oh my gosh. I'm big on, I love my alone time. I am an introvert by nature, so I really do energize when it's just me. I watch old, Agatha Christie mysteries. I quilt. I've got a dog. I've got a bird. I've got my friends. I do anything outside of law enforcement and outside of mental health. Just take me away for a little bit. Plus, I do pray a lot. I do a lot of prayer time. I spend time at church. I volunteer at church. People don't realize that when I'm volunteering at church, that is so fulfilling for me because I'm just completing tasks. I don't have to make any grand decisions, and nobody's really looking at me to solve a problem. I'm just completing tasks. You need plates? Here you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just simple, and I love it. I love it.
I love that you know what you need to thrive and to be your best self. So what's next for you in this work as you're thinking about the future? What's next? Any special projects or initiatives or just things you're excited about?
Well, I recently over the last year and a half, I became a therapist on a trauma retreat. And it is a retreat where for 5, almost 6 days, people are invited to deal with their traumas, to embrace their traumas in a way that they have never looked at them before, recognizing that you've already lived through it. Whatever the incident was, it's in the past. Trauma isn't the incident. Trauma is our response to the incident. And it's dealing with those responses that limit people, that drag people down, that have them held captive emotionally, helping them to work through that to get a little bit further beyond it so they can continue to heal from it.
Wow, so powerful. The words I'm leaving with today is live through it. You have lived through it and you will continue.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Officer Kinard. We appreciate your time with
Thank
us
you.
today.
I appreciate you. This is great. I can keep talking, but I know we got to go.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of We Don't Talk About That, supported by Grand Mental Health. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to subscribe to our podcast and become part of our growing community of mental health advocates. Visit grandmh.com for more information.